Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday and happy December. So, today, stories of inspiration and transformation. I am going to be talking with somebody who's become a very good friend of mine, Christian Grancourt, and we actually met through another business group that we met each other. We realized we had some similar messaging, and over the course of a month or two, we've become very good friends, and I have seen the power of his coaching. He is absolutely transformational, from being a global corporate IT person to a transformational coach. But I like to call him the escape artist because he teaches people how to escape into the life they've always wanted. So here is Christian Grancourt. And at this point, I always want some applause, but we'll just wave. And so, Kristen, I would love to hear about your journey. Like, what brought you here? And, well, first of all, tell us where you're coming from and then go into your journey.
Yeah, well, I'm in Melbourne, Australia right now. It's Thursday morning at 9 a.m. for all of you, but back there in the States. So yeah, I started I grew up here in Melbourne, Australia, and fell into a graduate position at a global multinational company in Ernst & Young and their consulting division, and they recruited me as an IT consultant, and that kind of happened through some synchronicities. But I kind of found myself here in this 50-story building with a view to die for, and my blue collar, hardworking factory parents were wondering how that happened. but it did, and then after a few years, I was just consulting and with global corporations, and then I kind of took off after a few years. I bought a one-way flight to London, England, and it took my $45,000 a year salary to about 200 because I chose to leave from as an employee consultant to an independent consultant. So I was able to so I saw what they were charging me out at. So I started to cash in on some of that, but as well just be more independent. And I used that opportunity to live in London, England, to travel around the world while I was sort of in my spare time. Because I was independent, I could freelance, and I only needed to work about 9 or 10 months a year, and still making really good money. And I just traveled all around Europe. I saw most of the European countries. Also traveled around other countries, including the US, and traveling just became my thing. And I just spent a lot of time in personal development, and that was helping me to transform and go to new levels in my life and learn all about human potential and how we can transform our lives and improve the quality of our lives. And I did that when I discovered Tony Robbins way back in 1999. And that really was the catalyst for my growth and transformation and discovering who I really am as someone who can create transformation in people's lives. So yeah, and that's kind of a bit of a summary of my life and what's got me there. But yeah, certainly as a 26-year-old, I didn't think I'd be having that kind of lifestyle. It was truly amazing to have that and be able to travel the world. But a big part of it was the joy and the fulfillment I was getting out of transforming people's lives and helping people to improve. That was actually something I didn't expect would do so much for me when I was going to college and growing up and all of that stuff. All of a sudden there I was finding myself just knowing how to support someone who was going through a difficult time.
So I just want to make sure I understand. You were working the IT corporate,
yeah,
and you got involved with the Tony Robbins organization, and actually you were doing coaching as one of his staff or consultants or something.
Yeah, because it took me about 3 or 4 years, I think, to do all of his programs. And then once I got to that point, then they invited me to be a senior leader for their organization and to kind of work with them at the events. So it wasn't a full-time thing. It was whenever they did the events. So I attended 6 to 8 events a year, and in exchange for my time, they continued to allow me to develop more and more of those transformational skills that Tony uses to transform people's lives in an hour or two, at a time. And I was fascinated with how quickly he was able to to transform someone's life through those coaching skills. So it allowed me to develop those skills, to learn and actually get experiences transforming people's lives using the same skills. So before I knew it, it was like you go into an event and there are a couple of thousand people, and I'd be helping 10 or 20 or 30 and at every event. And before I knew it, I'd been doing this with hundreds of people. So it was great.
That's great. So you had really what a lot of people would think of as, the ideal life. You work 9-10 months out of the year. You get to travel all over the place. You're on the team with Tony. You're doing really cool stuff. So at some point you got to a transition point, which I know we're going to talk about later, but I want to hear this transition from what 99% of the world would go, wow, that's the life I want, to being deeply dissatisfied to the point of being unwell. So go ahead and tell us about that.
Yeah, I think it had to do with the work I was doing in the corporate world, as well as the work I was doing in the transformational spaces that I was working in with the Robbins environments. And I found that I was enjoying that more and enjoying my work less. And I think having a certain level of income with a lack of meaning, it started to really show up. In the professional work that I was doing in the corporate world, I was finding there wasn't as much meaning in that. And I got to a point where I hit six figures, as a 26 to 30-year-old earning 200K, and thinking, I've got everything I want financially. And I didn't have a desire to go to 7 or 8 figures, because I just felt like, why would I do that and earn more money when I've got more than enough money and I'm still not happy? So there's something else going on. And that was when things changed. And the more I stayed working in those environments, the more unhappy I got, the more burnt out and stressed I got, and I couldn't understand why. And things started to just decline from there. So, and when I looked back on it, it was kind of like, how did that happen? How did I go from a decade of experiencing this wonderful lifestyle to all of a sudden being unhappy and miserable? And people thought, well, you have this great lifestyle, why are you so unhappy? But something deeper was going on.
Right. So I'm just trying to wrap my head around this, just because so many people that I talk to, again, what you described was the dream. It was the dream.
Yeah.
So many people, and you see this in your work, think that when you get to 6 figures, or you get to this money goal, that suddenly everything's going to get so great. Your life's going to change. It's going to be amazing. And your firsthand experience right here, I see this all the time. People end up not being that happy. And so how did this show up for you? So you felt like there was something off. You were just dissatisfied. You just didn't see the point in making more money because you weren't happy. So did this show up for you physically, mentally, emotionally? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It first started to show up mentally, whereby just not being happy in the work that I was doing. And then the work started to get more stressful. It felt more stressful because I felt like I was getting more fulfillment doing more transformational work, but I wasn't doing enough of it. Then because I was spending all this time doing work that wasn't doing it for me, it didn't feel like I was actually doing anything except for helping company A make millions more money, right? And I felt like there I was, seeing the way they were treating people, and that was bothering me a lot, that they didn't seem to care too much about what the employees' needs were, because all they cared about was their shareholders and their bottom lines, right? And I just thought, I know there were ways that we can actually have both, right? They weren't able to see that. So it showed up that way for me, and that started to bother me more and more. And then they started to recognize that I was someone who could help them become more successful. So they kept asking and demanding more and more and more of my time and energy, and putting more responsibilities on me and expecting more and more from me. And it just felt like I was becoming more of a slave and a machine, and a human being. And it just started to burn me out and stress me out. And then I found that the mental patterns of that were being established in my work began to spill over into my personal life, because it became hard to stop. And the worry and the stress that was created in the job. And before I knew it, it was like it was consuming my personal time.
Right.
And then over time, it developed into insomnia. I couldn't sleep at night. I was waking up between 2 and 3 a.m. every morning, and I couldn't get back to bed. I'd have to drug myself asleep. And when that showed up with the side effects, where I'd wake up in the morning feeling really cloudy and heavy-headed and not being able to perform well in the morning, then I just felt like I couldn't keep drugging myself. And so I stopped doing that. But the downside was that I couldn't sleep at night. So when I woke up at 2 or 3 a.m., not be able to go back to sleep, all those negative thoughts would keep manifesting in my head, and it became this waking nightmare that I would experience between 2 and 4 a.m. And it was dark and quiet, and my wife was sitting next to me or sleeping next to me, and I didn't want to wake her up and make the problem worse for her. But she could sense my restlessness. And then, then she started sleeping in another room. So that wasn't great for our relationship. And I just got scared to go to bed at night, because I got to about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and I thought, I'm going to wake up in a few hours, and I'm going to spend 4 hours in this dead, eerie silence of night, and this mental worry about work the next day is going to continue on in my head. And I didn't know how to escape. I didn't know how to get out of it. And it went on like that for years.
Wow.
So
just in that trap. I mean, that just when you were describing that, that's actually kind of how I felt, was just so trapped.
Yeah.
So you clearly got to a point, a turning point, where you knew that something had to change. And as we were preparing for this, and the one of my favorite quotes by Anais Nin came into my mind, and it says, and the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. So the risk it took for you to blossom was less risky and painful than staying where you were. But you took there's risk. The risk is really real when you do that. What were some of the risks that you faced, and what finally gave you the courage to actually take the risk?
Yeah. Well, after you notice the physical things starting to pile up, right? And you notice that your health is deteriorating and doctors are telling you to remove an organ and things like that, right? Then you kind of realize that this is causing those risks to happen. And I thought, what's the worst risk? Is the worst risk me taking a leap of faith, right? And at least feeling happier in those moments, or is it continuing with this pattern of decline that felt like a slow death? I felt like I was dying slowly. I looked terrible. I was putting on weight in an unhealthy way, and I just felt like I'd worked myself into this situation, and I'd always been great at what I did because I always focused on being good at what I did. So I thought, I've never had a problem getting work, right? Because I genuinely do well at what I do, and something will show up if I'm absolutely desperate for money and I need it, and therefore this is worth the risk, because I can't continue like that, because I wasn't that old. I was only like 45 years old, and I still had so much more to give, So I just thought it's time to really think about it and whether this is the right thing for you. And then one day, after a difficult week at work, I got to my weekend. It was my Saturday, and there I was at a nice beachside restaurant with my wife and my dog, having a lovely weekend. The weather was beautiful. The waves were crashing on the beach, and we're just enjoying this time to ourselves. And my phone rang, and it was them. It was my boss, and expecting me to drop everything and rescue them because of a situation that they got themselves into, because they didn't involve me in those conversations during the working week when they had my time. Mm-hmm. And they just expected me to drop everything in the middle of that experience. And it was just kind of like, I've given you enough of my personal time before, but I had plans with my wife to spend a day together after a really difficult, month or so that we'd had. at work, and they were trying to take even that away from me. you know. And I just thought, where did this end? And they obviously had a lack of respect for my personal time. And I just felt like, if I don't respect these people, if I can't respect this leadership, what am I doing?
Right. Yeah.
You know. So I stopped it at that point.
Go ahead.
I stopped at that point, and I took a few days to think about it. I talked it over with my wife, and then I sent my letter of resignation, and I gave them 4 weeks notice, and I was only required to give them a couple of weeks, and so I was I did that, and then I was gone. So
wow, so that was really the breaking point for you. You were like, this is it. Wow.
Yeah, having a great moment, having a beautiful moment with limited time that I had available for me, and they wanted to take that too. They wanted to take what I had left.
Wow. So you quit, and you didn't have a safety net. Like, you quit your job, and you didn't have another job to go to. You didn't have this. So that had to have been a little bit scary. So what kept you going through that? And then where are you now? So I kind of want to just follow this transition from just jumped off, there's no safety net, and yet here I am, way better than I was.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was doing fine financially back then, and I had good credit, things like that. I had a little bit of money saved up in my IRAs and 401k, so I knew I had some support behind me in that way. But I just knew that I had the ability to do something else. I knew I'd developed these coaching skills with the work I'd done in the Robbins environment and in other personal development environments, and I just knew that I could do something else. So I kind of trusted in that, and I moved forward. But a few weeks after I quit that job, I got the news that my father had a few weeks left to live. He was dealing with cancer, so I flew back to Australia and supported my family through that. And in spite of all those things happening, I just was okay. I just found that I was always being supported, and I always had what I needed. And it's a funny thing to kind of think about, but it is amazing when you are making decisions powerfully and knowing what you want to do, how the universe seems to support you one way or another. And I always had the money that I needed, whether it was a bit of credit or money coming from here or somewhere else, and I had everything that I needed. So I was able to do that. So it was and I was able to continue on this path of using my coaching skills to create something more meaningful for myself.
Awesome. So what would you say, Christian, is your secret sauce, your superpower that has gotten you to this place where you are a transformational coach? Some of the conversations that we've had, even though you're not my coach, you've said things that have been really life-changing, have really added a lot of value to my life. So what would you say is your secret sauce, your superpower?
I think for me, I've always had this ability to transform insights into solutions, and for anybody, no matter what I'm doing, and I'm able to generate an understanding and to generate important information about people or who I'm working for by being empathetic, by listening to their needs and understanding what's really going on for them. And being able to then see, once I'm able to connect the dots, I'm able to really see very quickly what the solution is for that person or for that company. And I've always been able to do that, whether I was implementing multinational business systems or whether I was transforming someone's life or whether I was helping my mom overcome rheumatoid arthritis. And I was able to do that very quickly and help to turn things around. So it's that my superpower that I discovered was my ability to transform insight into solutions that are effective. And along the way, as I was developing, the coaching practice that I have to help people escape in the way I did, I realized there was really three parts to it. And the first part is helping people to align to their superpower and their gifts and their true purpose in life, what they're really here to do, that's going to bring them meaning and that life they want, to help them to align to that. And then the second step is really to help them prepare to do something, to move in that direction, because there are things that you need to do to prepare to make that leap or that transition. And then, of course, there's the final step, which is to escape. And there are some things that you can do there to actually move yourself powerfully out of the situation you're in right now. So that I kind of noticed that there was this real sort of a little system, if you like, where it's like you align to that which is what you really want and what's going to bring you happiness, prepare, and then escape.
Nice. I love your system. And I love how you said you turn, say one more time, you turn.
I transform insights into solutions.
Insights into solutions. That's super powerful. I think you need to trademark that. Insights into solutions. That just, it's so succinct. It's really beautiful. And I think that you just have so much value that you can offer, because it's a scary landscape when you're going to change things up in such a drastic way. And just your superpower and the system that you've developed. And we are doing a webinar on Friday called Bust Out and Escape. And some of our messaging is really similar. And we're going to talk about busting out and escaping, making the second half of your life better than the first half of your life. And it's a free webinar, and the link to register is in the description of this video. So I encourage you to come and spend an hour and a half with us, and you might even get some hot seat coaching if we have time for that in the webinar. So Christian, I'm super honored and excited to do that webinar with you. I think it's going to be a really, really great experience with a lot of really powerful insights for people that they can take away and make their lives better right then and there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you have any final words of inspiration or advice for our audience?
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, I probably got about 20 years of it, but I think that I think that what I've realized overall, because we all have difficult times, right? We all go through challenges, and sometimes it doesn't feel great, and I've certainly experienced my fair share of that. But what I found, when you're in that place that might feel a little dark and a little difficult to get out of, what I found is perhaps one of the best ways is to get yourself into a state of gratitude, because it's hard to shift yourself. It's hard to make a better choice. It's hard to get yourself out of a hole when you're stuck in that negative state where you don't feel like anything's possible. But I found that the way to move yourself out of it is to be in a better, more powerful state. And gratitude is the one that I found to be the most powerful, because I think we all have something that we can be thankful for. And whether that's, the country we live in and having the opportunities and the choices that we have in countries like the United States, where we have more opportunities than other countries, whether it be, living somewhere where we have a safe and beautiful home, whether it's a wonderful partner or a family or people that love us, or an income, even if it's not your ideal income, there's something that we can be thankful for. And when you can put yourself in that state, it feels so much better than in that negative state. And from there, you will find that the thoughts change. They become more positive. You find that one little insight that might allow you to take that next step and reach out for help, or find that next way forward. And I've just found that to be something simple and easy that we can all do, and just take a few minutes to be thankful for what we do have, even if we're trying to change our lives for the better.
Wow, gratitude is super powerful. And there's so many more interesting things about you. I hope everybody comes to the webinar on Friday and finds out more about Christian's superpowers and experience, and get some really valuable content. So Christian, thank you. It has been absolutely fantastic to have you here today. And we'll see everybody on Friday.
See you, everyone. Bye.